Quinn Nolan didn't expect his Tuesday to end with a stranger bleeding on the floor of his auto shop. He'd just finished changing the oil on a rusty Ford when the bell above the front door jingled. He didn't look up right away. Customers usually called ahead, but when he finally turned, his breath caught. A woman stood there, clutching her side, her blouse stained dark red. She swayed slightly, like her knees were giving out beneath her, and her other hand braced against the counter. "Help," she said, her voice barely more than a whisper. Quinn jumped into action. Hey, sit down, you're okay, you're gonna be okay." He dashed around the counter, catching her just as she slumped. He lowered her onto the worn leather couch in the waiting area, his hands already tugging the first aid kit from under the counter. "What happened?" he asked, kneeling beside her. "Did you get in a car accident? Were you mugged?" "No, it was a dog," she said through clenched teeth. It lunged. "I was running." Quinn gently lifted the side of her blouse. The fabric was torn and the wound didn't look too deep, but it was bleeding enough to worry him. "Okay, it's not too bad. I've got antiseptic." "You're lucky. I've had to patch up my kid's scraped knees more times than I can count." He poured antiseptic on a cloth and pressed it gently to her skin. She hissed and gripped the couch cushion. "You've got a kid?" she asked, trying to focus on something other than the pain. "Yeah," Quinn said. "Kinsley, she's 6, wild as they come. She's with my neighbor right now, Miss Dot, lifesaver." The woman gave a weak laugh. "Single dad." "Yeah, her mom walked out when Kinsley was just a baby, haven't seen her since." She looked up at him then, really looked. His dark hair was damp with sweat, his shirt had grease stains on it, and his hands were rough, but his touch was gentle, kind. She didn't expect that. "Not here, not now. Thank you," she said softly. "No problem." He wrapped the gauze carefully and taped it in place. "You're lucky." Another inch and it might have needed stitches. "I was jogging in the park," she said, blinking slowly. "I didn't see the dog coming. I didn't even get to my car." "You're not driving anywhere tonight," he said firmly. "I'll call you a cab." "No, don't, please. No hospitals. No police reports." That made Quinn pause. He studied her clean nails, her perfectly shaped brows, the subtle way her clothes screamed expensive even though they were now torn and bloodied. Something didn't add up. "You in some kind of trouble?" She looked away. "No, I need some air." "A moment." He didn't push. "Okay, but you're not walking out of here until I know you're steady," she nodded. "Fair." He stood and offered her a bottle of water from the mini fridge. She took it with a shaky hand. "Name's Quinn, by the way." Her lips curved just slightly. "Mara." "Mara Gallagher." "Well, Mara Gallagher, you've got a nasty gash, a torn shirt, and no ride home. You sure you're not having a worse day than me?" she snorted. "I think I win." For the next 20 minutes, Mara sat on the couch sipping water while Quinn swept up the garage floor and kept glancing over to make sure she didn't pass out. She watched him, really watched. He moved with purpose, with exhaustion, with the weight of someone who'd been doing too much on his own for too long. "You work here alone?" she asked. "Yeah, can't afford much help. My brother used to come by before he moved out of state. Now it's just me. And Kinsley." "Yup." "She's the reason I haven't gone completely nuts." There was pride in his voice when he said her name. It made her chest ache in a way she didn't expect. "You're good with people." He raised a brow. "You're bleeding on my couch and that's your takeaway. I mean it. You didn't panic." "You helped," he shrugged. "Did what anyone would do." "No," she said slowly. "Most people wouldn't." Quinn didn't know what to say to that, so he changed the subject. "You hungry? I've got leftover pizza in the back. It's not gourmet, but it's warm." Mara hesitated, then nodded. "Sure." "Thanks." He disappeared for a moment and returned with 2 paper plates and a couple slices of pepperoni. They sat in the garage under the hum of a flickering light, eating cold pizza like it was the most normal thing in the world. "Where's your car?" he asked, about a block away. "I parked near the park trailhead. I'll walk you to it." "You don't have to, I know, but I want to." He stood and held out a hand. Mara stared at it for a long moment before taking it. They walked quietly down the sidewalk, the night air cool and still. When they reached her car, a sleek black Jaguar, Quinn blinked. "You drive this?" She looked sheepish. "Yeah, it's Elise," Quinn chuckled. "Right, you're definitely not from around here." She hesitated before opening the door. "Thanks again." "For everything. Don't mention it." "I mean it, Quinn. You didn't ask questions, you didn't make it weird, you just helped." He shrugged. That's what decent people do. She looked at him for a long beat. Can I come by tomorrow to change the bandage? His eyes softened. Yeah. You can. Mara nodded, then slipped into the car and drove off into the night, leaving Quinn standing in the glow of the street lamp, wondering who the hell this woman really was. Back at home, Kinsley ran to him with her usual excitement, but as he tucked her in that night, his thoughts kept drifting back to the woman with the expensive car, the guarded eyes, and the mystery she carried like armor. He didn't know it yet, but Mara Gallagher wasn't just some jogger with a bad day. She was a millionaire, and she was about to flip his whole world upside down. The next morning, Quinn was elbow-deep in the guts of a Chevy pickup when the garage door clattered upward and sunlight spilled across the concrete floor. He didn't need to look up. The hush that followed wasn't the kind of silence a customer brought. It was tentative, cautious. I didn't think you'd actually come, he said, wiping his hands on a rag as he stood. Mara stepped into the garage, a dark navy coat wrapped tightly around her. Her hair was pulled back today, revealing a fine scar near her temple he hadn't noticed before. She held a small white paper bag in one hand and a folded envelope in the other. I said I would, she replied, her voice more certain than it had been last night. People say a lot of things. He gestured toward the office and she followed. It was cluttered papers stacked in lopsided towers, a rusted filing cabinet in the corner, and an old radio playing soft jazz. He motioned toward the chair opposite his desk. I brought something, she said, holding out the paper bag. Bakery down the block. The guy behind the counter said you always order the same thing but never pick it up. Quinn raised an eyebrow as he took the bag and peeked inside. Cinnamon scone and a black coffee. Huh, he said you used to come in with your daughter. Then you stopped. He leaned back against the desk, watching her. You ask a lot of questions for someone who didn't want to answer any last night. I notice things. Is that a crime? You always notice things about strangers, only the ones who keep bandages next to socket wrenches. He let out a quiet laugh and opened a drawer, pulling out fresh gauze and antiseptic. Let me see it. She slid off her coat and unbuttoned the side of her blouse. The wound was healing cleanly, no sign of infection. He worked quickly, his touch efficient but gentle. I'm surprised you're not on a flight to somewhere sunnier, he said. I had a meeting this morning. Must have gone well. I ended it early. He looked up, surprised. Didn't go well. It wasn't the right deal. Most people don't walk out of meetings in the city. I'm not most people. He tossed the used gauze into the trash. Yeah, I figured that out when you pulled away in a car that costs more than my shop. She didn't flinch. I didn't mean to lie. You didn't lie. You just left a lot out. She hesitated before speaking again. I work in corporate investments, mergers, acquisitions. I own part of a consulting firm based in Chicago. You commute that far for jogs in the park. No, I'm here for a few months. We're negotiating a buyout of a family-run tech company based downtown. I needed a break. He crossed his arms. From suits and boardrooms. From people who only talk when they need something. He studied her for a beat. Then he looked down at the envelope she'd placed on the desk. What's this? Compensation for your time and your help. I don't want your money. It's not charity. It feels like it. You bought dinner last night. This is just me doing the same. He didn't touch the envelope. I'm not keeping score. Maybe I am. That gave him pause. He looked at her longer, something unreadable flickering behind his eyes. She stood and pulled her coat back on. If you ever need anything, I need more brake pads and a new lift that doesn't groan when I breathe near it. Unless you've got those in your backseat, I'm probably good. She smiled, something quiet and reluctant. I'll see what I can do. As she turned to leave, he called after her. What's your real reason for coming back? She didn't turn around. Maybe I'm not done noticing you yet. The door closed behind her, leaving Quinn staring at the envelope on his desk. He didn't open it. That afternoon, as he picked Kinsley up from school, she bounced into the truck, breathless and pink-cheeked. Miss Dot says I can help her plant tomatoes this weekend, he smiled. You're gonna have the fanciest garden on the block. Can we get those little fish things to put in the dirt? She says they're good luck. We'll see. As they drove through town, his eyes flicked to the sidewalk. Mara walked past a bookstore, her coat fluttering behind her. She didn't see them. Kinsley caught his gaze. Who's that? Just someone I helped yesterday. She's pretty, like a fairy, he chuckled. Don't let her hear you say that. She's got more bite than sparkle. She looked like a lady from the TV. She's not. She's just passing through. Kinsley leaned her head on the window. Sometimes people who pass through are the ones who stay. Quinn didn't respond. He just kept driving. That night, Mara stood in her penthouse suite, 30 floors above the city. Her assistant's voice echoed faintly from the speakerphone. They're pushing for a revised offer. Do you want me to stall? Mara stared out at the skyline. Tell them I'm considering my options. She ended the call and walked to the kitchen, where her untouched breakfast still sat on the counter. Her heels clicked softly against the marble floor as she moved to the window again. A man with grease under his fingernails and a daughter who called her a fairy was now in her thoughts more than any boardroom deal. And for the first time in months, she wasn't sure what she wanted more. 3 days passed before Mara returned. Quinn was under the hood of a '69 Mustang when the low hum of an engine rolled up to the curb. He didn't look until the door shut. No Jaguar this time, just a discreet rental, easy to miss if you weren't paying attention. But he was. She wore jeans and a lightweight sweater, her hair pulled into a loose knot, and for the first time she didn't look like someone who moved in penthouses and boardrooms. She looked reachable. You're early, he said, wiping his hands on a towel as she walked into the garage. You're always here, she replied, her tone unreadable. Figured you wouldn't mind some company. You here for another bandage? No, I came to ask you something. He raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything. There's a friend of mine, she went on. He owns a property outside the city. Wants to turn it into a classic car restoration retreat. He's looking for someone local, someone who knows engines and doesn't talk like a salesman. Quinn didn't move. And you thought of me. You're not exactly forgettable. He tossed the towel onto the workbench. What's the catch? Nothing shady. He's just picky, wants it to feel authentic. You'd be your own boss, full creative control. I already am my own boss. Here, sure, but this would be bigger. You could hire help, expand. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked to the bay door and leaned against the frame, staring at the cracked pavement. You know, I can't just pack up and chase something because it sounds shiny. I'm not asking you to chase anything. I'm offering an introduction. You'd still be working with your hands, just with more resources. He turned his head. You always go around offering strangers dream jobs, only when they deserve more than what they've settled for. A long silence stretched between them. Finally, he said, you ever fix a carburetor? No. Then don't assume you know what I've settled for. Mara didn't flinch. I didn't mean it that way. Didn't you? He didn't wait for an answer. Instead, he walked back to the car and reached for his wrench. She didn't move either. After a moment, she stepped further into the garage and glanced around. You ever think about what you'd do if money wasn't a problem? I'd probably still be doing this, he said without looking up. Maybe with a better lift. She wandered over to a dusty shelf stacked with parts. You like old things. They don't pretend to be something they're not. Do people? He looked up then, meeting her eyes. Some more than others. She didn't respond right away. Then, there's a benefit gala this Saturday, downtown. Black tie, overpriced tickets, champagne flutes taller than your daughter. It's for an organization I support, mentorship programs for kids. Quinn wiped sweat from his brow. Sounds like I'd stick out. I want you to come with me, he blinked. What? You said I don't know you. Maybe you're right, so let me see what you're like in my world. Why? Because I haven't been able to stop thinking about what it felt like sitting on that couch in your shop, eating cold pizza and not pretending for once in my life. He stared at her for a long beat. You sure you want the guy with grease under his nails at your fancy gala? I'm sure I want the guy who didn't ask questions when I was bleeding, he exhaled slowly. I don't own a tux. I'll take care of it. He narrowed his eyes. That sounds a lot like you're paying. I'm not. I'm inviting. He didn't answer, but she could tell something shifted. A crack in the wall he kept up like armor. By the time she left, he still hadn't said yes. But he hadn't said no either. Saturday came faster than Quinn expected. That morning, Mara sent a driver to pick up a charcoal suit wrapped in plastic. No tag, no receipt, just a handwritten note. Try not to look too shocked. He held the suit in his hands like it might disappear. Kinsley peeked over his shoulder. Are you going to a wedding? Something like that. Do you get to dance? He laughed. I don't think they play the chicken dance at this kind of party. You should dance anyway. Miss Dodd arrived just before sunset, her arms full of snacks and coloring books. Quinn kissed Kinsley's forehead and told her to behave, then stepped out into the night. The car Mara sent wasn't flashy. It was quiet, almost invisible, like everything else about her when she wanted to be. When he arrived at the hotel, a valet took the door before he could reach for it, and suddenly he was in a sea of black suits and glittering dresses. Mara waited near the marble staircase, dressed in a sleek gown the color of smoke. Not silver, not gray, something in between like moonlight. Her hair was down, soft waves brushing her shoulders. She didn't smile when she saw him. She just watched, like she'd been waiting her whole life for this exact moment. "You clean up well," she said as he approached. "You look like you own the building." "I almost bought it once," he shook his head. "Of course you did." They stepped into the ballroom together, and for the first time in a long time, Quinn felt like the floor might tilt beneath him. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen rain, and every table gleamed with polished silverware and place cards written in gold script. "Why am I here, Mara?" She paused. "Because I want to know what it feels like to stand next to someone who sees me, not my portfolio." "And what if I don't fit in here?" "Neither do I," she said quietly. As the night unfolded, he watched her move through the crowd with effortless grace, shaking hands, exchanging air kisses, making introductions. But every few minutes, she would glance back at him. Like he was her anchor. During dinner, she leaned closer. "You see the man with the red tie? He runs a hedge fund that tried to acquire my company last year. He thinks I'm still considering his offer." "Are you?" "No, but it's fun to let him sweat." Quinn chuckled. "You're dangerous." She met his gaze. "Only to people who underestimate me." Later, when the music took over and couples drifted to the dance floor, she held out a hand. "I don't dance," he said. "You don't trust me." He hesitated, then took her hand. They moved slowly, awkward at first, then more steady as the rhythm settled between them. He wasn't graceful, but he was sure, grounded. "I haven't danced with anyone since college," she admitted. "You're not bad, liar." They both laughed, soft and close. As the music faded and the lights dimmed, he looked down at her and said, "You're not what I expected." "No one ever is." And in that moment, surrounded by glittering strangers and polished lies, something real sparked between them, something neither of them were ready to name, but both knew was already there. Quinn didn't expect the morning after the gala to feel like a hangover without the alcohol. He stood in the kitchen, pouring cereal into Kinsley's bowl while her feet swung from the stool, humming something tuneless. The faint scent of Mara's perfume clung to his suit jacket, now draped over the back of a chair. It was distracting. "I had a dream you were dancing," Kinsley said suddenly. Quinn raised an eyebrow. "That's so?" "Yeah, you were in a big room and there were sparkles on the ceiling. You were holding a lady's hand." He froze for half a second, then shrugged. "That's a funny dream." Kinsley mouthed spoonfuls of cereal between sentences. "Did you see stars when you danced?" He paused. "Maybe." The shop opened late that day. Not on purpose, just one of those mornings when the world moved slower and nothing felt urgent. Around noon, the bell above the garage door rang and Mara walked in, holding a manila folder and 2 coffees. "You looked like you needed caffeine," she said, handing him one. "And I thought you might want to see this." He wiped his hands and opened the folder. Inside was a single-page proposal. His name was at the top, typed in bold. "What is this?" "An offer," she said. "From my firm. We're investing in a community-based mechanics program. It's part of a new initiative partially funded by the same people who backed the gala last night." He kept reading. "Apprenticeships for local high schoolers." "Yes. You'd run the program, train them, oversee the shop expansion. We'd provide funding, equipment, and marketing." He looked up, cautious. "Why me?" "Because you're already doing it, just without help." He folded the paper. "You didn't mention this before." "I didn't want to mix business into something that wasn't." He leaned against the workbench, rubbing his jaw. "And what is this?" She hesitated. "It's an opportunity, but it's also me, showing up, not just talking." His eyes flicked to hers. "You think I need saving?" "No, I think you deserve a chance to breathe." He didn't respond at first. The silence stretched, but not uncomfortably. Finally, he said, "If I do this, it's on my terms, of course." No suits, no investors poking around. It stays local, agreed. He unfolded the page again. You already had this drawn up, didn't you? Before the gala, I wanted to see if you'd still feel like Quinn after a night in my world. Did I? You did, she said. Every second. He nodded once, then reached for a pen. That weekend, Mara showed up at the garage again, this time in canvas sneakers and a ponytail. Quinn had cleared a space in the corner, where he'd set up a small desk and a whiteboard for the new program. There were already 3 names on a notepad students Miss Dot had recommended from the local high school. You look different, he said. So do you, she replied. He handed her a wrench. Let's see what you know. They worked side by side in companionable silence, her trying to identify parts without much success, him hiding a grin every time she guessed wrong. It wasn't about the cars it had never been. It was about proximity, about showing up. That afternoon, Kinsley bounced into the garage, her backpack dragging slightly on the floor. Mara, she said, wrapping her arms around her waist. Mara knelt to hug her back. Guess what? I found a place that sells those fish thingies for your tomatoes. Kinsley's eyes widened. The fish sticks, fish fertilizer. But close enough. Quinn watched them, arms crossed, shoulders relaxed for the first time in what felt like months. That night, after Kinsley went to bed and Miss Dot settled in with her crocheting, Quinn walked Mara to her car. The street was quiet, the sky streaked with the last colors of dusk. You ever think about how weird this all is? He asked. Which part? Me, you, this? I try not to think too hard about the good things, she said. I just try not to ruin them. He looked at her, really looked. You're not ruining anything. She touched his arm. Neither are you, he hesitated. You're not leaving, are you? Not unless you want me to, she said. The program needs time and I want to see it grow. He stepped closer. That the only reason? No, she said. It's not. They didn't need to say anything else. Not then. Weeks passed. The garage changed slowly, then all at once. New tools arrived. A computer system. A fresh coat of paint on the walls. Students came after school and on weekends. Quinn taught them in the same quiet, patient way he fixed engines. Mara handled the logistics, the paperwork, and the fundraising calls. They became a unit, not rushed, not defined by obligation, just real. One afternoon, Kinsley tugged on Quinn's sleeve while he adjusted a carburetor. Can we keep her? She asked. He blinked. Who? Mara, like forever. He crouched beside her. You like her that much? She nodded. She makes things feel easy, even when they're not. He wrapped an arm around her. Yeah. She does. That night, he took Mara to the back lot behind the garage, a space he'd cleared, strung with soft lights and folding chairs. There was no gala band, just a dusty speaker playing old soul music. A pizza box sat open on the hood of a car, and Kinsley danced barefoot in the grass. Is this your version of a fancy event? Mara asked. He grinned. No dress code, no speeches, just good company. She took his hand and leaned her head lightly against his shoulder. Best invitation I've ever gotten. He kissed her, then no tension, no hesitation, just certainty. And when the night air turned cool and laughter echoed off the pavement, Quinn knew he hadn't fixed her, and she hadn't saved him. They just found each other right in the middle of their messes, their lives, and their second chances together. Quinn stood under the canopy of twinkling lights in the back lot, watching Mara laugh as Kinsley twirled around her in the grass. The speaker buzzed faintly with an old jazz tune, but it wasn't the music that made his chest tighten, it was the sight of them, fitting together like they'd always belonged in the same frame. He didn't say anything. He just watched, memorizing the way Mara's eyes crinkled when she laughed, how Kinsley reached for her hand without hesitation now, as if she'd been part of their lives forever. It had started quietly, but now it was undeniable. When Mara finally stilled, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, she glanced over and caught him staring. You're thinking again, she said, stepping closer. I'm always thinking, he replied, setting down the wrench he'd been pretending to use. Just usually not about things that feel this. Good. She folded her arms, not in defense, but in curiosity. And what does good feel like exactly? Like the quiet after a storm, like the kind of peace I forgot I deserved. Her features softened. You didn't forget. You just didn't have anyone to remind you. He took a step forward. You remind me every day. They stood close now, the distance between them stripped of pretense, but there was something deeper beneath his next words. I've been thinking about the program. Mara raised an eyebrow. The apprentices? No, the bigger picture. I looked over the contract again. There's room for expansion. For turning that back lot into a training garage, for building something long-term. You want to grow it. I want to build something that lasts, and not just the program. She tilted her head. What else? He took her hand. Us. Mara didn't pull away. I wasn't sure if you'd want that. I wasn't sure if I could do it right, he said. But then I watched you teach Kinsley to braid strings into her shoelaces yesterday, and I realized I don't need to be perfect. I just need to show up. The way you do. She bit her lip lightly, a flicker of emotion crossing her face. You're already doing it right. He looked down, then back up at her. I don't want this to be temporary, Mara. I don't care where you came from, what your last name is, or what building you almost bought. I care about how you make Kinsley laugh without trying, how you fight for things that matter, how you see people. She leaned into his chest, her voice quieter now. I've spent most of my life building things that looked impressive on paper. But none of it ever made me feel like this. He wrapped his arms around her. So stay. I already have. The next few weeks unfolded like the world had shifted into a space just wide enough for 3 people to grow roots. The program launched officially with 5 apprentices. Mara coordinated local sponsors and quietly convinced a few investors to back the expansion without ever once stepping on Quinn's vision. She even helped him pick the new flooring for the renovated garage, though she insisted the orange tiles were a mistake he'd regret. He installed them anyway. Kinsley took to the new routine as if she'd written it herself. She painted a mural on the back wall with the apprentice's bright gears and stars, with a stick figure version of herself in the middle, holding hands with a taller figure with a wrench. When asked who it was, she replied, "That's Daddy." And that's Mara. She's holding the blueprints. The moment Quinn saw it, something shifted deep inside him. A clarity. A knowing, so one warm evening, just as the sun dipped behind the rooftops and the shop buzzed with quiet after-hours energy, Quinn tucked a small velvet box into his pocket. Mara was in the office, scribbling notes on the whiteboard, her hair pulled up haphazardly with a pencil sticking through it. He watched her for a moment before stepping in. You got a second, she turned, distracted. Always. What's up? He didn't answer right away. He just walked over, took the pencil from her hair, and gently set it on the desk. You said you wanted to build something that couldn't fall apart. Her brow furrowed slightly. I did. Well, he said, reaching into his pocket, I want to build it with you. He opened the box, revealing a simple gold ring, glinting in the soft light. Mara stared, her breath catching audibly. I don't have a yacht, Quinn said. I can't fly you to Paris for dinner, but I have this shop. And this kid. And this whole messy life that somehow made space for you, and if you want us, I'm all in. She didn't cry. Mara Gallagher didn't cry, but her chin trembled and her voice dropped to a whisper. I want you. I want all of it. He slipped the ring onto her finger and she leaned in, kissing him like she'd been waiting her whole life to finally find the right place to land. Months passed. The program went statewide. Other garages reached out to model similar systems. Quinn spoke at a conference in Denver, his first time on a plane in years. Mara stood in the back, arms crossed, pride radiating from every inch of her. They got married in the back lot, under the same lights where they'd first danced. Kinsley wore a crown made of daisies and insisted on walking Mara down the aisle herself. There were no champagne flutes or choreographed speeches. Just laughter, music, and a promise made between 2 people who had rebuilt their lives one bolt, one blueprint, one beat at a time. Mara never moved back to Chicago. She turned down 2 offers to buy out her stake in the firm. Instead, she opened a local office, hired a small team, and spent her mornings consulting and her afternoons knee-deep in grease beside Quinn. The Jaguar stayed parked most days. Mara preferred the pickup now, and every night as the garage lights flicked off and the stars blinked overhead, Quinn would wrap an arm around her waist and whisper, "Still not tired of me?" "Never," she'd say. "You're my favorite engine to rebuild." And he'd laugh, kiss her hair, and know with unshakable certainty that he'd found everything he never knew he was missing in the woman who bled on his couch and never left.